It was still dark when Kate Middleton opened her eyes. The soft light of dawn had not yet reached the windows of Kensington Palace. Her bedroom was quiet, but her mind was loud. Thoughts raced. Her heart beat faster than usual. Today was going to be a very important day and a hard one too. The annual Children's Hope Foundation Gala was happening tonight. It was one of the most special events on the royal calendar. A night to raise money, a night to bring hope, a night to speak from the heart. But this year, Kate would be going alone. Prince William, her husband, had been called away on urgent government business the night before. That meant she would attend the gala as the only senior royal present. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem. Kate had attended hundreds of royal events by now. She knew what to do. She knew how to smile, how to speak, how to charm a room full of important people. But lately, something inside her had changed. She sat up in bed and reached for her phone. There was a message from William. "I'm so sorry I can't be there tonight. You'll be amazing as always. The children are lucky to have you. Love you." Kate smiled, but only for a second. But they didn't take away the nervousness in her stomach. She got out of bed and walked slowly to the large window. Outside London was quiet. The city hadn't fully woken up yet, but her heart already felt heavy. She had a speech prepared. It was written perfectly, polished by her team. It talked about the importance of helping children. It had good statistics, moving quotes, and beautiful language. But now, those words didn't feel real. They didn't feel enough. The truth was, Kate didn't want to pretend tonight. She didn't want to act strong when she didn't feel strong. She didn't want to say perfect words when her heart was full of confusion and pressure. Kate had been doing this being a princess for over a decade. She had learned how to stay calm under stress. She had learned how to carry herself with grace. But recently, things had felt different. The public pressure had become more intense. Every photo of her dress, every smile she gave, every word she spoke, it was all watched, judged, and talked about by millions of people. Social media had made it worse. Strangers gave opinions about everything. Her clothes, her parenting, expressions, her every move. It was like being in a glass box, always being looked at, but never truly seen. She walked to her dressing table and sat down. The mirror in front of her reflected a beautiful woman, but Kate didn't feel beautiful. She saw tired eyes, a tight smile. She didn't feel ready to face the world, but she had no choice. Royal duty never waited. By late afternoon, she was dressed and ready. She wore a deep green gown made for the event. The color brought out her eyes. Her hair was styled in soft waves. Her makeup was soft and natural. Her earrings were diamonds, ones worn by Princess Diana. Everything looked perfect on the outside, but inside, she still felt unsure. Her assistant knocked gently on the door. "Your Royal Highness, the car will be ready in 15 minutes. Kate nodded. "Thank you." You stood and looked one last time in the mirror. She tried to smile. It looked polite, yet real. She left the room and walked down the long marble hallway of the palace. Her heels made soft clicks on the floor. The sound echoed. She was alone. The silence of the palace made her thoughts feel even louder. She got into the royal car. As it moved slowly through the London streets, Kate stared out the window. She saw everyday life passing by, people holding hands, children walking home, with backpacks, couples eating in cafes, people who didn't have to be perfect all the time, people who could laugh, cry, mess up and no one would care. She envied them for a moment. Kate had everything people dreamed of: beauty, power, fame, and wealth. But sometimes it felt like a golden cage. She wasn't allowed to have a bad day. She wasn't allowed to cry in public. She wasn't allowed to be too honest. Always smiling, always graceful, always royal. She looked at her folded speech again. She had practiced it many times. Every word was carefully chosen. It sounded good. It would please everyone. But it didn't feel like her voice anymore. Maybe tonight, something needed to change. The car slowed down as it reached the Royal Opera House. Crowds were already waiting outside. Photographers with flashing cameras, journalists with notepads, fans behind metal barriers holding signs. Everyone wanted a piece of the princess. Kate took a deep breath. This night was not about her. It was about the children the foundation helped. Children who had gone through pain, loss, fear. Children who needed care, therapy, love. This was their night. She had a platform. She had power. And maybe, just maybe, tonight she could use it to say something real. The car door opened. Bright lights, shouting reporters, flashing cameras. Kate stepped out onto the red carpet, smiled, waved, and walked toward the entrance to the world. She looked perfect, but tonight the real Kate was hiding under the surface, and deep in her heart something told her. This evening would be different. She just didn't know how yet. As soon as Kate walked through the tall glass doors of the Royal Opera House, the warmth of the room hit her. Soft music played in the background. Golden lights sparkled from the high chandeliers. The grand staircase was lined with white roses and green ribbons, the colors of the Children's Hope Foundation. The place looked magical. Kate smiled and moved with grace. She was a princess after all. She greeted the guests, shook hands, and posed for photographs. Everyone admired her. They whispered about how stunning she looked. Her green gown shimmered under the lights. Her posture was perfect. But inside, her heart still felt heavy. Most of the guests were wealthy business people, celebrities, and politicians. They smiled and spoke politely, but their words felt shallow. Kate listened to talk of vacations, expensive watches, and upcoming parties. But very few people mentioned the foundation or the children it was trying to help. That bothered her. She had seen this before charity events that became more about looking good than doing good. But tonight, it bothered her more than usual. Maybe because William wasn't there. Maybe because she had woken up feeling empty. Or maybe because she was starting to realize something was missing in how she connected with others. Then she saw them. At a quiet table in the back of the ballroom sat a woman and a teenage boy. They didn't look like the other guests. The woman wore a simple black dress, and her son seemed uncomfortable in his formal clothes. He kept his eyes down and fidgeted with his fingers. Kate felt drawn to them. Something about their body language felt honest, real. She left the group of wealthy donors she was talking to and made her way across the room. As she approached, the woman looked up, and her eyes grew wide. She quickly stood up, almost knocking. Over her water glass, "Your Royal Highness," the woman said, clearly shocked. "I didn't expect. I'm so sorry, Wasn't ready." Kate gently touched her arm. "Please don't worry. May I sit with you for a few minutes?" The woman nodded quickly, still unsure what to say. "I'm Sarah," she said, her voice shaky. "This is my son, Jaime." Kate smiled kindly at the boy. "It's very nice to meet you, Jaime." He looked up shyly and gave a small nod. Sarah took a breath and began to tell her story. Jaime, now 15, had been a cheerful and curious child. But after a painful divorce, everything changed. He became withdrawn, angry, and sad. He stopped going to school, got into fights, began talking about how he didn't want to live anymore. Sarah tried everything: doctors, school counselors, even prayer, but nothing helped. "Then someone told me about the Children's Hope Foundation," Sarah said. "I was so scared, but I had nothing left to lose." She explained how the foundation welcomed Jaime with kindness. The counselors didn't just treat him like a problem. They listened. They understood him. They gave him tools to deal with his emotions and taught him that it was okay to feel pain and okay to talk about it. Now Jaime was going back to school. He had made 2 new friends. And just last week, he told his mom he wanted to try out for the school's soccer team next. Sarah wiped her eyes. "I know it sounds small to other people, but to me, that's everything." Kate felt her throat tighten. This weren't just facts or numbers. This was a real story, a real life. A real boy finding his way back. Suddenly, Jaime looked at her and spoke. "You look sad tonight," he said softly. Kate blinked. The room felt quiet around her. "Are you okay?" he asked. His voice filled with honest concern, not curiosity or fear. Kate paused. No one ever asked her that. Not like that. Especially not someone so young. She nodded slowly. Yes, I'm just having a hard evening, she said truthfully. Sometimes being in the public eye can feel overwhelming. My Jaime nodded as if he understood exactly what she meant. My therapist says it helps to talk about it. When you keep feelings inside, they just get worse. Kate looked at him closely. Here was a teenager who had faced darkness and had found a way through it. And he was offering comfort to a princess. Sarah smiled proudly. The foundation didn't just help him, she said. It helped me too. It reminded me I don't have to be perfect. I just have to show up for my child. Kate felt something shift inside her. These two people, ordinary, humble, had touched her heart more than any polished speech ever could. She stayed at the table longer. Other guests from nearby tables came over. One by one, they shared their stories. A young woman named Lisa, once in foster care, spoke about how the foundation had trained her for a job and helped her believe in herself. An elderly man named Robert said his granddaughter had been abused. At home, but through the foundation, she had found safety, therapy, and hope. None of them were rich. None of them were famous. But their stories were powerful, and every word they said made Kate feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Truth, honesty, real connection. She began to realize that she had spent so much time trying to be the perfect royal that she had forgotten the most important part: being human. As the music played softly in the background and glasses clinked in celebration, Kate sat quietly at the back of the room. The princess was not in the spotlight. She was sitting beside real people, hearing real stories. And in that moment, she knew something very important. Her speech tonight needed to change. She no longer wanted to speak from paper. She wanted to speak from the heart. Kate sat at the back table of the ballroom, still surrounded by the soft sound of music and quiet laughter. But her mind was somewhere else. She could no longer hear the violins or the clinking glasses. Her heart was full, and her thoughts were spinning. Something had changed inside her, just moments ago. She had listened to real people share their stories, stories of pain, survival, and healing. They weren't trying to impress anyone. They were not rich or powerful. They were just grateful for the help they had received. And in their honesty, they had taught Kate something important. These people had reminded her why the Children's Hope Foundation mattered. Kate had come to this gala thinking she was here to speak for the children. But now, she realized the children and their families had spoken to her. Their stories had touched her more deeply than anything she had prepared. Her speech no longer felt right. She stood quietly and looked across the room. The stage was ready. The microphone was waiting. In just a short while, she would be called up to give her speech, the one she had practiced so many times. But now it felt empty. It wasn't wrong. It just didn't feel honest anymore. Kate turned to Margaret Thompson, the kind woman who had founded the Children's Hope Foundation. "Margaret," Kate said softly, "may I ask you something?" Margaret looked up from her seat and smiled. "Of course, Your Royal Highness. I was wondering, would it be all right if I changed my speech tonight?" Margaret raised her eyebrows, a little surprised. "Change it? Do you mean completely?" Kate nodded. "Yes, I've been listening to so many stories this evening. They've made me feel something I can't ignore. I don't want to just speak from a script. I want to speak from my heart." Margaret's surprised look turned into a warm smile. She reached out and gently squeezed Kate's arm. "I think that would be wonderful. Sometimes the most powerful speeches come from truth, not from paper." Kate felt a small wave of relief. Still, she was nervous. Speaking off script was risky, especially at such a big royal event. She was used to being careful, planned, and prepared. But tonight, she wanted to be real. She spent the next few minutes sitting in silence, going over the thoughts in her mind. She didn't write anything down. Instead, she thought about what she had heard from Jaime and Sarah, from Lisa, Robert, and the others. Their words gave her strength. Then the lights dimmed. A quiet hush fell over the room. Margaret stepped onto the stage and walked to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said with a proud smile, "thank you for being here tonight. It is now my great honor to welcome someone who has shown us deep compassion and courage, Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales." The room filled with applause as Kate stood up. She walked toward the stage slowly, her heart beating fast. This time she had no paper in her hand, no printed speech. Just herself. She reached the podium and looked out at the crowd. The lights above her felt warm. She could see all their faces, the wealthy donors, the foundation workers, the families she had met, all watching, all waiting. She took a deep breath. "Good evening," she began, her voice soft but steady. "Thank you all for being here." There was silence. Everyone was listening. "I came here tonight with a speech written for me. It was a good speech. It said the right things. But after what I've heard this evening, I realized something. Those words are not what need to be said." She paused for a moment. "Tonight I have listened to stories. I had stories of children who have gone through pain I can hardly imagine. Yet they are still here, still fighting, still hoping. I have heard from teenagers who have learned to speak about their feelings. I have heard from parents who never gave up on their children. I have heard from people who, even in their darkest moments, found light through this foundation." Kate's voice grew stronger as she continued. "I thought I came here to speak on behalf of these children. But the truth is, they have spoken to me. They have taught me something I will never forget." She looked around the room, her eyes landing on Jaime and Sarah, who were sitting near the back. "A 15-year-old boy reminded me that it's okay to be honest about your struggles. That asking for help is not weakness, it's bravery. That healing does not come from hiding pain, but from sharing it." The room was completely still. Kate's voice carried through the silence like a gentle wave. "Many people see children who struggle with mental health or trauma as broken. But I see something else. I see strength. I see courage. These children are not here to be fixed. They're here to be understood, supported, and loved." Kate paused, her eyes starting to water. "I've learned something about myself. Tonight, too," she said quietly. "I have learned that sometimes even those of us who seem strong and put together are struggling inside. That's okay." She didn't try to stop the tear that slid down her cheek. In showing our own vulnerability, she added, "We open the door for others to do the same. And that is where real connection and real healing begins." She finished speaking. The room remained silent for a moment. Then the applause began soft at first, then louder, then rising to a standing ovation. People were clapping not just because she was a princess, but because they felt something real. Even the monarch seated in the far corner stood quietly, with hands clasped, eyes filled with respect. Kate looked down for a moment, overwhelmed, and in that exact second, as she lowered her head, something powerful happened. The room fell completely silent again. No one moved, no one spoke, and in that stillness, something beautiful passed between them, all a shared understanding. It was no longer just a royal event, it had become a moment of truth. As Kate stepped down from the stage, the applause still echoed in her ears. But it wasn't the clapping that stayed in her heart. It was the silence, that deep, powerful silence that had filled the room when she lowered her head. That moment, when not even the clinking of glasses or soft coughs broke the air. It was as if everyone in the grand ballroom had forgotten how to breathe. Even the monarch, who rarely showed emotion in public, had quietly stood, hands folded, eyes steady. It wasn't about royalty anymore. It wasn't about gowns, cameras, or grand titles. It was about something real. Kate returned to her table slowly, and people gently stepped aside to let her pass. No one spoke yet. Many had tears in their eyes. Others nodded at her, not with formality but with respect, understanding when she reached her seat. Jaime was the first to smile. "You did it," he said quietly. Kate smiled back at him, her eyes full. "I think you did it, Jaime." Sarah gently placed her hand over Kate's. "Thank you for being honest," she said. "You didn't just speak to us, you spoke with us." Kate took a deep breath. Her heart felt lighter now. Not because she had done something perfect, but because she had done something real. And real meant more than perfect ever could. The rest of the evening flowed gently. The dinner continued, but now the mood in the room had changed. Conversations were softer, more thoughtful. People were no longer talking about holidays or business. They were sharing stories, asking questions, listening with open hearts. Something had shifted. Margaret Thompson, founder of the foundation, made her way over to Kate during dessert. Her eyes were warm and kind. "I have been organizing this gala for 20 years, Margaret said. And tonight was the first time I felt like every person in this room truly understood why we do this." Kate looked down, feeling humbled. "Didn't know if it was the right thing," she admitted. "I didn't plan any of it." "That's exactly why it worked," Margaret said. "Sometimes the best things aren't planned, they're felt." Kate nodded slowly. It was true. She had spent so many years trying to be polished, perfect, and prepared. But tonight, she had learned something that would stay with her forever. People don't connect with perfection. They connect with truth. Later that night, as guests began to leave, many came over to Kate not just to thank her, but to share small pieces of their lives. One woman spoke about her son's learning difficulties. A man told her about losing his sister to depression. Teachers shared how hard it was to watch children suffer in silence. Kate listened to each one with care. Her heels were sore, her eyes were tired, and her dress felt heavy now. But her heart was full. When she finally stepped back into her car, the flash of cameras no longer bothered her. She smiled at the crowd, not out of duty, but because she wanted to. She had nothing to hide anymore. As the car drove away from the Royal Opera House, the city lights of London blurred outside the window. Kate leaned her head back and closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she felt peace. She remembered Jaime's words, "You look sad tonight. Are you okay?" Where Jaime had seen something that others couldn't see through the royal mask. And in that moment, he had given her something rare and priceless, permission to be human. Back at Kensington Palace, the halls were dark and quiet. The large doors closed gently behind her as she walked inside. No staff, no cameras, no flashing lights, just silence. But this time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt healing. She went to her private study and sat down at the same mirror she had looked into earlier that day. She studied her face, not the makeup or the hairstyle, but her eyes. They looked different now. Softer, lighter, more alive. Kate opened her notebook, the one where she kept speeches and notes. She flipped past all the perfect pages. Then she turned to a blank one. She picked up her pen, and instead of writing a speech, she wrote a message to herself. "Let the world see your heart, not your mask. Let them see your truth. That's where your real strength lives." She closed the notebook and held it close. That night, Kate didn't feel like a princess. She felt like a woman who had finally found her voice. A voice that didn't need to be perfect, polished, or planned. A voice that had learned something powerful, even in a world of crowns, diamonds, and thrones. Strongest thing a person can do is simply be honest. Because when you speak from the heart, people don't just listen, they feel. And when that happens, even the monarch stands in awe.